Welcome, everybody, to another great CEO podcast. My name is Jim Schleckser. I'm your host, and I have a guest today, another great CEO, Ravi Venkatesan from Cantaloupe. Hey, Ravi.
Thank you, Jim. I'm excited to do this podcast and look forward to the questions here.
Let's hope you say the same when we're done. In a few sentences, tell us about your company and what you guys do.
So, Jim, we're the market leaders in North America in technology that powers self-service commerce. And we are on a mission and on a journey to take that globally and become the global market leader for technology that's essentially disrupting commerce and making more of it be self-service.
But okay, so I got a question. What do you mean when you say self-service? Because I've been able to put my credit card into a variety of items forever now, 20 years, 15 years. So what's different about what you guys do?
Yeah, so if you think about the early beginnings of it, it was, you had anything that could dispense a product or a service and take a credit card payment, right? So all the way from laundromats to vending machines to parking to car washes and all that. And you will already find our products as the point of sale terminal that you use to make that card payment. But it's a little bit more than that. So, in those quote unquote unattended environments, when you make a purchase, whether it's a product or a service, and an example of a service is you have a massage chair sitting at an airport and you use it to take a massage, right? So that's an example of service. But when you make that credit card payment, there is something that has to tell that machine, in the case of a massage chair, to give you a massage, in the case of a parking gate, to open the gate, in the case of a vending machine, to dispense a product, right? You get the drift. So we call that functionality as telemetry. So our products combine that telemetry and the payment acceptance. And oh, by the way, a third piece of that puzzle is all of our units are connected to our cloud software. And now it's fashionably called the Internet of Things, or IoT. So all these devices are IoT, but
connected.
Yeah, exactly, or connected devices. But the consequence is that not only is it enabling self-service commerce, it's enabling owners and operators of such businesses to manage their business from an office at a computer, right? So they don't have to have field service personnel go out all the time and do stuff. In the old days with bills and coins, you had to go collect.
Yeah, horrible.
So
interesting. And you do the credit card processing as well?
Yes, we are a credit card processor. And one of the things that we've done, which differentiates us from our competition, is we are able to process small ticket transactions in a very efficient manner with a low cost of acceptance. So the PayPals and the Stripes and the Squares and those guys don't come and compete with us because that requires specialized skills and capabilities. We also run our own payment gateway and our own payment network. So if you're in a retail environment, when you swipe that credit card, it goes through a traditional kind of payment switching network. But our payments, they actually go through our own protocols and our own connectivity that's powered using wireless SIM cards provided by, let's say Verizon, AT&T, et cetera, right? Carriers like that.
Interesting. So that's your competitive advantage. The ability to transact micropayments is really where you win. And these, because I was going to ask about, you got a lot of competitors, but they're up here, you're down here.
That's right. That's right. And it's not just the ability to do micropayments, which we indeed are one of like 3-4 people that can do that, or companies that can do that. But it's this ability to combine that with the paradigms of, hey, if you're doing e-commerce, we can combine it. If you're doing in-person versus e-commerce, but if you're doing micropayments versus larger ticket items, and so we can blend all those things. I'll give you a real world scenario, right? And this is not distant future. This is near future. So you want to take your family to Six Flags and you buy tickets online, and then you show up there, and then you realize you've got 2 extra people. You buy tickets at a kiosk on site, then you go in. And then you realize there's this one wonderful ride that wasn't covered in your regular ticket that you bought. You buy that over there at, a dispensing, a little machine that's out there. And then you want to get some candy, you want to get some snacks, you go to a vending machine, you go to what we call a micro market, which really is a I grab a salad, I scan it at a kiosk, pay right there and go. We power all of those experiences.
I see.
So we build the kiosks, we build the payment terminals, we run the payment gateway. So we enable that entire experience in terms of purchase, in terms of payment processing, and in terms of dispensing the product or service.
Got it. And normally they'd have to stitch together multiple solutions to solve that problem. I got it. Okay. Interesting. It'll be fascinating as you go global because cell phones, were one of the ways people solve this problem, right?
Yeah.
So what percentage of your revenue recurs every year then? So this must be
80+% of our revenue.
Once they're on the system, they're not leaving, right?
Yeah. The only thing that's what we call non-recurring revenue is when we sell equipment, right? So when we sell people devices that they can put on their,
right.
Car wash or their amusement ride or a game or something, that equipment is the only thing. And even that, now we are moving more and more to a cloud computing kind of paradigm where people just subscribe to it. People just say, hey, I got a monthly fee, and we call it our Cantaloupe One initiative. So Cantaloupe One is all about, you don't buy anything and you don't take the risk of device obsolescence or anything. We take care of all that.
Got it. So you're going to finance the equipment. I love that move from buying anything to subscribing to it. It's a massive improvement in the business model.
Sure.
Improves recurring revenue, predictability. It's a beautiful thing. So,
For sure.
And I actually think what people don't talk about is it's good for the client because it matches their cash flow. Who wants to put these big expenditures out, when my cash flow looks like this? Wouldn't you rather just make it look just like that? And
I'll give you a couple of concrete examples, right? Recently, our industry went through this whole move from devices being 3G connected to 4G, right? So 3G is obviously sunset. I mean, we've already got 5G. 4G is still the majority of the towers that are out there. So you had a lot of our customers that we had to go to and say, hey, you got to upgrade to a 4G device. Otherwise, your device is going to stop working because 3G is sunset. And so they're like, okay, how much is it going to cost? And, what am I going to get? And they're like, yeah, it's probably going to cost you another $300 to replace that device. And on top of it, maybe $100 to pay somebody to go install the new device. And you don't really get anything. Not a great answer, right?
Yeah, right. That's not fun spending for sure.
Yeah. So that happened, and then similar to that, Visa and MasterCard and all the networks came up with EMV as a more secure standard for contactless payments, and they sunset the previous standard, which was called MSD, which is more magnetic swipe enabled. And so when that sunset happened, which almost coincided with the 3G one, now we're telling our customers the same thing. Hey, you got to upgrade to another device because it supports EMV contactless transactions. Otherwise, your tap functionality will stop working. And they're like, okay, what else do I get? Nothing. So those two in particular drove us to innovate and come up with this model where we can tell customers, look, it's now on us. You pay a monthly fee. We take the risk of hardware obsolescence. We take a risk of regulatory compliance, everything, right? You just don't have to worry about all that stuff.
Got it. Interesting. So any business, or any system has a point of constraint. Think like a kink in a garden hose that limits the ability to perform. And every business has a kink in the hose, right? Something that, boy, if we could make this better, the business just gets more profitable, faster growth, better. So what is that for you? What if you had the magic wand? What would be the one thing you would change about this business to make it better?
I think it's consumer preferences, which are already changing, but there is still, a little bit of resistance, right? Think about when you go to last time you've been to a big box department store and you see, self-checkout lanes on one side and you see the store clerks on the other side, and there are still some people who are going over here. Right? And maybe a decade ago when the self-checkout lanes from Panasonic and NCR, like I'm talking about the big bulky self-checkout lanes, we make more nimble stuff. But when those came out, everybody thought, okay, that's the way the world is going. You're soon going to have these cashier-enabled lanes disappear. And here we are a decade later, and they really haven't disappeared, right? So the barrier is just that. And what I've noticed is, I'm sure you've seen this, it doesn't happen in a linear kind of steady manner. It happens in leaps. And, COVID fortunately forced another such leap where QR code based payments and more self-checkout became popular. People didn't want any contact, and they didn't want other human beings touching anything that they touched, and so on, right? So I think that's really a constraint or a kink, if you will, and we are working on ways to overcome it. And of course, there is there's sheer dynamics around the industry itself that'll help overcome it, but there's inertia also.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of research on technology adoption curves, right? And you're just faced with one of them that you're dealing with. I think accelerating them is hard.
Yeah,
very hard, because it's just so many people you have to engage,
that's right.
convince. I think you probably do better convincing the stores, for example, not to have the other technology available. Right? You got to burn the boats, right? You can no longer do it that way. You must do it.
You have to Cortez it as
exactly. Yeah, exactly. So how many hours a week do you work nowadays?
Let's just say I'm getting past sleeping 4 or 5 hours. I had an interesting 3 weeks where it was very, very intense. But it's the kind of phase in a business where you enjoy it, and so it doesn't feel burdensome anymore. But no, I definitely want to get back to my normal, which is more like 6-7 hours. I don't think I've ever been able to sleep more than that. So,
yeah, that's okay. But
it's too much fun to be had and too many fun things to do.
There's too much to do and too little time, right? So, in line with a growing business, one of the things we have to do as leaders is we move up our responsibilities into higher value work, and we delegate down things that we used to do. And you've been there for a while, so there's certainly things you used to do that you no longer do. Can you name one major responsibility that you've delegated in the last 6 months? You said, yeah, I'm out. This is now somebody else's job. I'm not.
Yeah, look, I have a strong technology and product development background. And so I've been very conscious and almost alert to the fact that I might have a tendency to go interfere in that space. And so when we brought our CTO in November last year, that's one where I've really forced myself into a discipline of, feedback and opinions are great, but interference is not great. And how I feel if, I were in those shoes and my boss kept interfering or providing ideas into what I should do. So that's an example of where I've really, really delegated. Now I'm a big believer in this role, you got to be broad and shallow, but you have to keep doing deep dives in different areas at different points in time. So I do, I'll go do ride-alongs with a driver that's filling up, stocking up, cafeterias in different workplaces and using our software to manage their workflow or our apps. And I like keeping my ear to the ground and really feeling what it is to walk in the shoes of one of our customers, users, and things like that. So I do that though. I don't delegate that stuff.
That's great. I tell people I came up sales and marketing, and I would tell people, heaven help the poor person that follows me in that job, because what you're doing is very hard not to go, I'm not going to say anything. It's very hard. So good for you. If we had to characterize your leadership style, what would be the one or two things that you would say, or the people that work around you would say about your leadership style?
Look, for most part, I think people will say, one, I'm very transparent and authentic. It may not always be what they like to hear, but they're going to get it straight. And anybody who either works for me or works for somebody who works for me, the one principle that I live and die by is you're never guessing how you're performing. There is no guessing. You don't have to wait for a quarterly review or a 6-month review or an annual review. If you're not doing well with me, you know it. If you're doing well with me, you know it. If you're somewhere in between, you know it, right? So that's number one. And I kind of live and die by that principle. And otherwise, look, I'm a big believer in kind of you use your mind to do the calculations, and then you bring the heart in for a moral compass and to make the right decisions. So I never use the brain to make the right decisions. I use the heart for that. And it's kind of this principle of inside out leadership where, if I'm managing my own emotions and my inner state better, then my behaviors with my colleagues and partners and customers and investors are authentic and real and positive. And that results in naturally it results in better relationships, trust, and influence that I build, and hence outcomes I can generate. So that's how I would describe my leadership style.
That's great. That's great. I like that. I think not enough leaders rely on their gut, on their heart. That's great. And then the last question, what do you do for fun?
Look, I travel a lot. We don't have kids, so have the luxury of kind of, we took the shortcut to empty nester phase. And so do a lot of fun stuff in terms of travel. One of my failed careers in the past was as a musician. So I play the guitar, I sing. So I spend a lot of time, enjoying that and still have enough fun with it, even though wasn't good enough to make a profession out of it, or at least chose not to. And I think those would be the major kind of avocations. I also am passionately fond of how meditation and meditative practices can improve productivity and workplace relationships and so on. So I do a lot of volunteering with a couple of nonprofits to teach that stuff and to do some mentoring and coaching in that space.
Phenomenal. Awesome. Ravi, this was great. Sounds like you got a great business. I appreciate what you're doing. And thank you for taking the time today. I really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure talking to Jim, and look forward to seeing this come out.
Absolutely. Cheers. Bye.